up, people? Welcome back to the Brom Squad Gaming channel, and this is a very different video compared to what you're normally used to. Of course, it's the tactics, it's the career modes, it's the who to sign, how to sign, why to sign sort of players. But this is a video because you guys, or a large majority of you guys, or at least a couple of comments all over the place, have been asking, what are the camera settings? What are the sliders? What are your controller settings? So I decided to just make a full video for anybody who has any sort of interest in what I'm using. And in this video, I'll be going through what I use in my career mode and what I also use just out of career mode when I'm creating the various different tactics and those gameplay settings and all that good stuff. So to kick things off with is the gameplay settings, and the preset is set to custom, although I'm pretty sure majority of you guys will also have it set to custom. Neither here nor there. As for the shooting, I have that set to off for the auto shots, so everything and anything that you see is me pushing the circle button. There's no ifs, buts, or maybes. If I'm looking to hit the ball at the goalkeeper, I've pushed circle. If I'm looking to hit the ball in the back of the net, I have pushed circle to do so. So I have that set to off. As for the assisted headers, I have that on. Of course, we know that for FC25, the headering was atrocious, and then there were also a bunch of people who were like, you're just not good at the game. I was like, no, it's a fact. And then quite literally EA were like, oh, we understand the headering has been quite bad. And I was just like, okay, well, it is what it is. But anyway, for FC26, because FC25 was a shit game, FC26 I have assisted headers set to on. Now for the shot assistance, I know there's going to be those people in the comment section saying play with precision on and play with the manual on, and I'm just like, guys, I'm not that good at this game, so I have the shot assistance set to assisted. Of course you can still hit the ball for a throw-in from time to time, but more or less, if I'm trying to aim it at the goal and I'm just slightly off and I've deviated a little bit, I don't want it going into row Z in you know, the Stretford end. I want it going into the back of the net potentially, or at least towards the goal, because I've aimed it in that direction. So I have it set to assisted. Now when it comes to the passing, your boy's got the auto flare set to off. Of course, I want to be doing the little drag flicks and the little McGeady spins and then the little no-look passes off to the side and all that stuff. So I have it set to off. Now I understand if you have it set to on, I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but I want to be in control of as much as possible, kind of, in a way. So that's why I have that set to on. Now for the through ball assistance, I have it set to assisted. The lobbed through pass, I have it set to assisted, and all of these are set to assisted. Again, I'm not amazing at this game. I do require a little bit of aid and a little bit of help here and there, so I have majority of this stuff set to assisted. As for the pass receiver lock, it's set to late. Now I have left a lot of this, you know, just to its base thing. I haven't really meddled too much with it. There have been a few things that I have changed, but otherwise it's pretty much bang on what you would get when you start up the game. I'm not a big fan of changing so many things or shifting my game settings to try and suit me. I'm more of a person who I try and adjust and adapt to what EA and the creators have set out for us to potentially use. So I hope that explains a lot of the reasoning behind some of this stuff. Now for the defending, auto clearances sets to on. You could have it set off if you want, but every now and then I do tend to forget to push square or X or circle, however you want to clear it, and I do require a little bit of assistance every now and then. Now for the clearance assistance, it's set to directional, so of course whatever direction you're using the analog stick is going to go in that area of the pitch. The jockey is set to assisted. The defending, now I use advanced defending. Now I know there's also legacy defending and there's tactical defending. I use the advanced, so it's a bit of the amalgamation of the two. So in this area, I think I'm pretty good. So I want the advanced defending sets to on. For the professional fouls, I didn't realize this, but I put this on the other day, and that's the one where you can, you know, pull the player down, stop quick transitions. The entire time I've been like, surely you can do this, because you could do it last year in FC25, I'm pretty sure, and I couldn't do it. And then I realized, oh, it's in the instructions. So now I have it set on, so we will be seeing some professional fouls taking place in the career mode going forward, of course. As for the pass block assistance, that's also set to on. Now onto the player switching, and I've changed precisely nothing. It's pretty much bang on from the day that this game came out. For the last 2 months, these have been the settings that I've used, but I'm also seeing here the player lock is set to off. Now this is something that I did use quite a decent amount in FC25, especially with the lack of the player movement. So I was like, okay, I'm going to put the player lock on. Now obviously the player movement has definitely improved for FC26. So I haven't really thought about using it, but now that I'm seeing it, I'm actually going to put it on because it can be quite useful, especially in those very cagey, tight-knit affairs where you're trying to break down a deep block and the players just aren't making the right runs into the right areas. You can just hold down the left and right analog sticks, you know, bump them down, and then you make the run yourself, and then you push X, and then the player, plays the pass, and it's great. So yeah, I'm going to have that set to on. So slight little tweak and variation there. Onto the dribbling. Now the dribbling, I have it set to the simplified skill moves. I didn't even know that this was a thing, by the way. That is set off. I don't need to, look, I'm not the biggest person when it comes to using the analog stick and doing the crazy Cruyff turns and half spins, and I don't do that, but I don't think I need to have it set to a more simplified version where I just use the analog stick and it'll do it for me. So I have it set to off. If I'm doing anything crazy, you best believe it's your boy 110%. There's no aided assisted skill moves there. It's literally just me and pure luck if I'm doing something cool on camera or on the pitch or whatever. When it comes to goalkeepers, again, I haven't changed anything, and for the controller references, I haven't changed anything apart from this, the trigger effect. I've recently put this on, so it just gives you a little bit more resistance in a way when you're holding down L2 or R2 and you're trying to sprint or something like that. Obviously, it just adds a little bit more to how I like playing. I want to feel that little bit of fight and bite, but it really doesn't matter too much about it. Otherwise, everything else pretty much sets to how I got the game, apart from those few changes. Now, for the match settings, I have changed a few things, but nothing crazy. The quick matches, I have that set off because when I go into the kickoff area, I like to muddle with the teams, sort out the team sheets, apply the tactics, use the tactics, play around with those sort of things. So I don't really use the quick match. As for the half length, I play on 4-minute halves, and the difficulty I use is legendary. Of course, that's for the kickoff. For the career modes, your boy uses the ultimate, because that is what level I'm on. Obviously, I'm really not that good, so don't yeah, anyways, the competitor mode, I have that set to off, but the player-based difficulty, I have that on. It does create a little bit more of a variation. I know some people might prefer to have competitor mode and player-based difficulty both sets on, but again, I'm not that good at this game. I'm just trying to make my way in this world, and that's my sort of setting. So there is that. As for the quick subs, of course, I have that set on, but every now and then they offer the worst sort of quick subs, so I have to go into the menus and do it myself, but every now and then it is nice to have that quick suggestion available. As for the conditions, that varies from game to game. However, when I am recording, I don't know if you guys may have noticed this, but with my last couple, I don't know exactly how many that's been, but with my last few videos that I've made, especially when it comes to the tactics, it's all been nighttime, because I do think that this game at night looks so much better and like very clean and it looks good. It looks really good at night. So all of my gameplay from now on will be at around 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock at night, and the weather will be clear and all that good stuff. The pitch and the ball and all that stuff doesn't really matter. Can vary from player to player. Now, the game type settings is what a lot of you guys have been requesting. What are your sliders? Well, there you have it. The game type settings are authentic, because why? I think it brings more realism, it's got a good pace to it, and it just makes the game overall wise feel so much better. In my personal opinion, of course, you can tinker with custom sliders. I haven't done that yet. I don't think it's necessary for this game, in my personal opinion. Or you can use competitive, which I think is just very arcadey, and it kind of takes you back to what FIFA used to be, quite literally like FIFA 16, 15, 17, and so on. It's very much reliance on pace. Of course, Authentic does have its little bit of pace outburst with the wingers and the fullbacks sometimes, but it's still better than the competitive mode, in my humble little opinion. But of course, this is what I use when I'm recording the gameplay for the tactics or the career mode, and I'm pretty much set on Authentic. Now, with the Authentic settings, I have the wind effects set to medium. Of course, with the career mode, there will be different settings for that, but for the time being, I just have the wind effects set to medium. It provides a good happy medium, and it allows you to have like 10 to 15 mile per hour winds every now and then. And as for the weather effects, this year I have it set to on. Now, I did try it out last year, and I said it was one of their worst features that they had implemented into FC25, because of course it was a new feature last year. Now, I always say this with EA, when they bring in new elements to the games, that first year they're really bad. They're like egregiously like shit. And you can have a look at FIFA down the last 10 years. Whenever they've implemented something brand new, the first year it's never been that great. And the weather effects were horrendous last year. The ball moved like it was on a waterlogged pitch. It looked like the ball was moving in a swimming pool at times. This year, they've balanced it out a lot more. When there's torrential rain and the pitch is waterlogged and the ball's moving crazy, it makes sense. But not every game is like that. I mean, in the Premier League, they have great drainage in their pitches, and the balls were moving crazy. Anyways, this year, it's a lot better. This year, there's more variation to it, and you actually are happy to see, like, okay, I need to just tweak my game plan just a little bit. Like last year, you were playing hoofball every time because the ball in the air was far better than the ball on the ground, because you were so scared to make make 5-yard passes. But this year, it's great. So give EA some credits. As for the CPU sliders, now, I do tend to bounce between what's happening on the tactical base versus what's happening on the dynamic base versus what's happening custom-wise. Now, I do use custom sliders for my career mode just to make things just a little bit harder for the time being, and for the various different tactics videos that I do make and stuff like that, I use the tactical AI behavior. So that's more or less what I use, and of course you can't really make any changes with that. Onto the camera settings, and I tend to use the legacy camera. I'm pretty sure I did mention this in the last video that I did for FC25. I don't really like changing my camera too much, so the legacy one is pretty much what I use all the time. And other than that, I haven't changed anything. I think I did put the power shots zoom off, because for me, when I'm about to, you know, power up a long distance shot, I hate the zoom in effect, and then it like makes my left finger wobble, and then I just steer the ball horribly wide. So I have that set to off, but like I say, otherwise everything else is the same. I don't really mess with the custom camera settings. I have it set to default, so therefore it's just all 10s all the way around. Pretty much, if you're looking for the camera angle that I use when I'm playing my games, it's the legacy one. Something about the old school camera angles, which is just so much better than these newer ones, or the dynamic, or the multiplayer, or the telefunk, or whatever the one that you might use. I think the legacy one is the best. Now, I'm not too sure about the visuals and all that stuff. I haven't changed anything. I think all the little pop-ups and the little, you know, score overlays and stuff, I think they're great, so I wouldn't want to change that, but of course you guys can if you want. But just running through it for the sake of running through it so you guys can see exactly how I play, it's pretty much bang on exactly how the game was meant to be played and used and seen. And yeah, I never mess with any of this stuff, to be fair. Like it'll take a lot for me to mess with some stuff. I know some people, they don't like the shadows. Now, there are 1 or 2 stadiums. I'm pretty sure Arsenal Stadium is terrible when it comes to the shadows. If you're playing at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the shadows in that stadium are crazy. So again, switching your stadium shadows off is always great. And I'm pretty sure it's a new feature that they added in this year where you can just have it off and you don't have to deal with the BS. That's always great. But typically, I just try and deal with it because, again, I don't want to take away from the graphic approach and the realism and all that stuff. So I just leave it on and I suffer, but it's okay. I suffer in silence. But yes, those are my settings for the visual. As for the audio, now these will be very different compared to what you guys use, because I tend to not want to have the music in the background for recording purposes and, you know, all that stuff. So I have the commentators off and I have the music off, and obviously I have the commentary language set to English whenever I do every now and then play with the sound on. But again, I very rarely play with sound anyway. I'm normally listening to YouTube videos or music or something else because, you know, that's just how I work. As for the stadium ambiance, I have it set to 5, so it provides a nice happy medium for the balance in the background for the career mode videos. If you haven't seen the career mode videos, check them out. It's going quite well. We made our first signing the other day. Yeah, that video is coming out tomorrow. So yes, these are the audio settings that I use, pretty much very specific to me, and I don't think anybody really cares about that. As for the game rules, I would love to have handball on. I really would, but I just know that I'll get screwed over at some point. There'll be a handball that gets called because my player's got his hand by his side and the ball hits his hand and the ref's like, that's a pin. So I just leave that shit off, to be honest. But otherwise, pretty much everything else is the same. Referee strictness, bookings, and all that stuff. As for the accessibility, again, I don't think you guys really care too much about this, to be fair. And it's pretty much set to the exact same stuff that it would have been naturally set to. I don't mess with the contrast. I'm not colorblind, and, you know, all that stuff. So if you are, by all means, adjust it for yourselves. And the last thing is the graphics mode, and I have that set to, you know, the enhanced visuals for when I'm recording or when I'm screen grabbing or getting certain stuff for YouTube or Patreon, or, you know, I'm trying to make it the best possible looking thing that it can be. But otherwise, if you don't have the capabilities, I would assume favorite resolution and all that shit. Fuck knows, man. I just go with the flow with this stuff. I'm very limited when it comes to knowing about how technology works sometimes. I know it's weird, but that's me. Okay, so now we're gonna run through the career mode settings that I do indeed use. Now, for the game type, it will be set to authentic. For the difficulty, it will be set to ultimate. Now, for the general settings, this very much depends on you. I tend to have the deeper simulation set to on because I want to keep up with the top 5 leagues and what's happening there. Transfer market, of course, I have it on, although I did watch a great video the other day. I can't remember who it was by, but the person had basically put the transfer market off and they had to do scouting some other way, and it was really cool. It was really cool. It was a great, alternative sort of idea that you're not always in control of who you're going after. So it can add a nice variation to your career mode. The board expectations, I play with it on strict. Of course, you can have it on harsh, that you're going to get fired ASAP. You can have it on no sackings, lenient, but I think strict is a good balance, because you can get fired. There's still that jeopardy, but they're not just going to fire you over anything crazy. Now, for the scouting, I tend to, mix this up a bit. For the star players, because they are so well known, they are obviously a lot easier to scout. So I have that set to fast, but for the general players, I have it set to normal. As for the unexpected events, I have it set to on, and then later on, you will see that it's set to normal, because you don't want to kill the career mode with this overabundance of unexpected events. This player gets food poisoning. That player develops a third leg. The other player, he wants to be sold. Like, you don't want that. You want one or two things happening every now and then, just to spice up the career mode and make sure that's, you're not doing the same and monotonous sort of procedure over and over again. For the match type settings, again, 4-minute halves, ultimates. I mean, the youth matches, I'm yet to play a youth match. I still couldn't give a fuck about that stuff, I can't lie. As for the quick sim, now for my Manchester United career mode, I have it set to off. And the match sim, I have it set to on. But this stuff is pretty much based on what you guys would want. I normally leave this stuff on. If I need to quick sim, I will. If I need to play match highlights, I will. If I want to restart a match, I will. I mean, it very much does depend on you as an individual. We do know that for this, I did mention it earlier, the wind effects set to dynamic. You want that dynamism, you want that variation. You want 5-mile-an-hour winds in one moment, and you want 15-mile-an-hour winds in other moments. If it's a cold and rainy day and there's wind blowing, it's great, because of course the weather effects will be on. But again, with the authentic settings, nothing's changed here. Now for the CPU settings, I'm going to go into the Man United career mode and show you it, but I have gone and used custom sliders for that, so stay tuned. I'll show you guys soon enough. But again, if I'm just playing a normal career mode, if I'm just offline doing my thing, trying to just enjoy myself, it will most likely be set to tactical. But if I'm looking to, again, increase the difficulty and make it very hard and see what I can try and do here and there and every other way, I will then look to use custom AI behavior. Now for the training, I don't like doing the training. I know some people, they're like super engrossed in what the career mode can be, and they want to do the training drills, they want to do all that stuff. And to those people, great. You guys carry on with what you're doing. For the training plans, I have it set to realistic for the training recovery rates. Of course, I'm trying to create this realism aspect. It's all about realism for me, people. But for the playing training drills, I have that off because I want to simulate that stuff. I don't care to play it. Just sim it, get the badges, get the stuff, get the players ready, fit and available, and get them going. For the squads, now this is pretty cool. Of course, they did have this last year, and I did use some of this stuff. But for Manchester United, of course, the players aren't the players that are injured aren't injured in the game, so you can go ahead and injure your players and all that stuff. So if you're starting a career mode from the beginning of the season with Lisandro Martinez, you need to give him an ACL injury and keep him out for like 12 weeks, because that will more or less align with him coming back in the end of November, December, which is exactly what he's scheduled to do. Pointers: do the research on the individual teams, find out who's fit, who's not, and go from there. Of course, if you are starting career mode from the live start points, they do tend to give the players certain injuries, but they never make them long enough. It's always like, oh, this player's injured for a week or 2 weeks. Maybe need to fix your game there, EA. Maybe need to fix your game. Now, in terms of the transfers and scouting, the transfers, I have it set to active, although if you're wanting to, you can start that. It also depends on what you're starting with, right? If you're starting at the beginning of the season, you can do the miss the first transfer window if you want. It's always great to do that. And then from January and onwards, you can then have the transfers on. But again, you can have it on active. The negotiations, I have it on realistic, because I'm not trying to go to Manchester City as a Man United manager and go and negotiate for Erling Haaland. That just doesn't make sense to me. And for the transfer approach, I have it set to strict. Because again, if I'm negotiating with Juventus for Kenan Yildiz, for example, when it's set to loose, you can go in with a low bid of 20 million and they're going to accept it and it's going to be great. And you're like, whoa, look at me, I'm saving money. It just doesn't work like that. They're going to be like, no, we want 50 million. And then you're going to have to pay 50 million for Kenan Yildiz. And also, it does limit the amount of negotiating that you can do for the players. Because again, if you're going in with 20 million for Kenan Yildiz, they're going to come back and be like, no, we want 50, and then you're going to say no, 25, and then they're going to say, well, you can politely exit my office and get on the plane and get back to Manchester if that's the case. So I have it on strict and realistic. The scouting is on, the player search is on, and then of course I mentioned this earlier, but fast and normal. And then lastly, for the general settings, board expectations, of course, set to strict. International job offers, off. I don't care about that shit. Manager market is on. Of course, that's a new thing. You can monitor and observe and see who's who and where's where and who's getting fired and who's starting new jobs, which is always cool. And then, of course, the realism set to... I think I normally just leave it on default, to be fair. And then we've got the deeper simulation. Now, for me personally, if I'm in the Premier League, which I've selected Manchester United for this example, I will go ahead and choose the Championship, because it's always good to keep an eye on who's coming up in the Championship that you might want to sign. So that will definitely be one of the leagues that I select, which is kind of shit because you can't really then go ahead and select the other 5 great leagues. So again, we're going to select France, we're going to select Germany, then we got Serie A. And then we can't go ahead and choose Portugal, because if we choose Portugal, then we can't choose Spain. So I do wish, and I hope that at some point in the future, they allow us to have at least 10, because that would be cool. Then you could choose Portugal, then you could choose Belgium, you could choose the Eredivisie in Holland. Yes, in the Netherlands. So you can choose more. You can also incorporate the Scottish Premiership as well. So those are the more or less the things that I select. Now, when it comes to the currency, again, I'm pretty much repeating a lot of what I said in that last video that I did. But the currency depends on the country that you're playing in. It does mean that you're pretty much set to a specific currency if you're going to job hop and go to different countries. So be wary of that. If you're starting in England, it's always great to start with the pounds, use the sterlings. If you're starting in France or Germany or Spain or Portugal, use euros. That makes sense. And then if you're using the MLS, you can use dollars. Now, I think dollars can also translate pretty much very fluidly if you're going to be a job hopping sort of manager. You're going from Europe to Europe to England. You're going from Europe to America, or you're going from Portugal to Spain. It makes sense to also use dollars or euros if that's the case. But pretty much if I'm selecting sterlings, it's going to be because I'm going to be staying in England. This more or less does depend on the team and the location that you're going to be playing with or playing in and so on. But otherwise, pretty much that's that. I did mention unexpected event frequency is going to be set to medium because you don't want it to be too much. So that's why I have it set to medium. So for the Manchester United career mode tactics, the AI behavior, of course, I have tweaked slightly. For the tackle aggression, I've set that to 54. The build-up speed is set to 56. The shot frequency also set to 58, and the first touch pass frequency set to 53. Now, some of these things will look slightly different compared to the episode 4 showcasing that I did. I have tweaked a few things, but not all of it. I've just tweaked a few things ever so slightly just to try and balance it out a little bit more. But of course, these sliders are implemented to try and make the computer a bit harder to play against, which, to be fair, especially since the last updates, the computer has been quite, intense when playing against them. As for the crossing frequency, we do know that it's been an ongoing issue with FIFA for a very long time, actually. It hasn't just been FC25 or FC26. It's been since like FIFA 20, maybe FIFA 21. The AI does not cross the ball, so you have to implement a higher cross frequency at least. And then lastly, for the dribble and skill move frequency, I have that set to 50. I don't need them putting out Neymar 5-star skill moves against me every damn game. I just need them on the odd occasion doing something cool and making me go, God damn. These are the slider settings that I have for the specific Manchester United career mode, and these are pretty much the settings that I will be using for FC26. I need to say FC25 for FC26. So unless I make another long form video, guys, these are the settings that I will be using. So there is that too. Anyways, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. It hasn't been super entertaining. It's just filled with information and stuff that you might want to change in your games. Maybe I've given you a few good tips and ideas. If I have, let me know down below. Also, let me know if you guys are trying out like different sliders, or if you've got something on that I have off, and tell me why I should put that on. Don't just be like, you have this on, you should have it off. Oh, competitive mode, you should have that on. Why should I have it on? Let me know down below in the comments section. That would be great. That would be amazing. That would be wonderful. And speaking of wonderful, I hope you beautiful people have a great goddamn day. And I'm out of here. Peace.